Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Vegan Tour Guide Podcast with your host, Mike Knight, where we'll bring you great information about a vegan plant-based diet. It doesn't matter if you've been vegan for years, part-time vegan, or just gathering more information. This podcast is for you. Thanks again for joining, and let's get today's tour started.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Vegan Tour Guide Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Knight. Hope you're having a phenomenal day. All right, very excited about today's guest. Got somebody on here that is been in the plant-based vegan space, spreading knowledge and information for quite a while now. I'm going to read her bio to you. Okay, she's a recognized expert and thought leader on the culinary, social, ethical, and practical aspects of living compassionately and healthfully. She's an award-winning author of 7 books, including The Joy of Vegan Baking, The Vegan Table, Color Me Vegan, Vegan's Daily Companion, On Being Vegan, and the 30-Day Vegan Challenge. She's an acclaimed speaker, beloved host of the inspiring podcast Food for Thought, which has been running for over 11 years. That is phenomenal that she's been doing that. So much information. It's a phenomenal podcast you've got to listen to if you aren't already doing so. And she's got a new one she's going to tell you about coming up. So I'll save the name of that for when you hear her talk about it in the podcast with us today. She has been on all kinds of TV programs. She has spoken all over the place. So I'm very happy that Colleen Patrick-Goudreau was kind enough to stop by and really give a lot of great information today. This is a great podcast where she shares her journey, but also shares a lot of knowledge. And, as I know, and we all talk about it, that, the people you listen to this podcast range from all across the spectrum. Some of you have been plant-based vegan for a while. Some of you are, just getting started, maybe a couple years or something. And some are just gathering information. And so she has something she's going to talk about called the 30-Day Vegan Challenge. And she's going to get into that during the show. But it is a great course that she has put together to help people that are maybe new get out of the gate, or maybe people that have been doing it a while. That sometimes in life, you got to hit like the reset button, you just kind of want to maybe get back on track and all like that. And so it's great for that as well. So sit back and definitely enjoy. It is a great interview that Colleen and I had. So grateful again for her for coming on. And I really just had such a blast talking with her. And so without further ado, here is Colleen.
Hi, Mike. This is Colleen.
Colleen, how are you?
I'm very well. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks so much for coming on Vegan Tour Guide with us.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for what you're doing. That's great.
I've received multiple requests from people to, ask you to come on the show. So I really appreciate it. And I was so grateful when Christy put you and I in touch. And so I know a lot of people already know about you, those that maybe are kind of new to plant-based vegan world and just, still gathering information just to fill them in. I mean, you've had, like we said earlier, your podcast for over 11 years. You've got multiple books now that you've had out. You stay busy.
I do stay busy. I actually, that is something I think should be on my headstone. I get stuff done. I just get stuff done. I just have always been of the mind that if there's something to do and we have skills and passion to do it, then who else is going to do it? And so that's always been my attitude. So I became an animal advocate about 25 years ago when I found out what they endure in so many different industries, obviously the food industry, animal agriculture, but also entertainment industries and research laboratories, et cetera. So I became an animal advocate many years ago. And, what I've always asked myself in doing this work is, what am I good at? What are my skills? What can I contribute? But what's the need? And I just found that I find that people really know why they want to make a change. I think it's either instinctive for people, or they've read something or seen something or learned something, and they want to make a change. What I see happening is that people want to make the change, but they don't know how to make the change. And so that's where I saw my role as being able to guide people through the journey they're looking to make and help them just answer the questions they have, debunk the myths that are out there, and give them the tools and resources they need to be able to manifest their values in their everyday behavior. And that's what I've been able to do. And I'm really grateful for it because I get to be part of people's journeys and transformations, and it's incredibly gratifying work.
Well, and I was listening to even on some of your podcasts, I've listened to other ones, and the most recent one I was listening to was like your 11-year anniversary, and some of the stories you were sharing of, you definitely aren't kidding. You've made some very big impacts in people's lives. So that is awesome.
Yeah, I do an anniversary, a love letter podcast every year for the anniversary of the podcast. And I read people's letters that I've gotten over the course of that past year. And yeah, it's pretty amazing to be able to hear from people, because what I love is that the work that I've done has altered people's thinking, not just their behavior. And I think that's really key for me and for anybody in terms of making changes, that it's really not just about changing external things. It's really about changing your paradigm and changing the way you look at things. So to receive those messages from people is absolutely incredible, because that makes it a lot more sustainable. That being changing your mind, changing your paradigm, changing the lens through which you see the world. And it makes it more enjoyable. And it means that there's a greater chance that it just becomes part of your being, and it just becomes part of who you are, and those habits just become new habits. So it's pretty awesome.
Well, yeah, and I like what you said about the change, because I've been plant-based vegan now for about 6 years, and I notice, I always tell people, like, questions I get asked, how they've changed and progressed even over just the short time compared to a lot of people that I've been doing this. Because in the past, I'd get, people just like, oh, what is that? I can't do without meat, or how do I do it? What about protein? All the laundry list of those little thoughts that were in their head and misinformation. And now I've noticed it transitions a lot to what I get is, that sounds hard, which is a whole different, paradigm mind shift, from those. And I love it, because now it means they're open. That means they're open. Tell me how.
Exactly. It's one of the things that I really encourage people who are already vegan, or people who advocate for veganism, or just want to guide people to really hear what people are saying when they respond to you as the vegan, because that is a perfect example of someone saying that seems hard. Really, if you flip it around, what they're really saying is, how do you do it? And if you hear what people are saying, you can more easily respond to be able to fill their needs, because that's really what I want to do. I'm not looking to have, debates with people. I'm not looking to have arguments with people. I am looking to be able to have a dialogue with people, but mostly to be able to give them the answers to the questions they have, to make it possible for them to make the changes they want to make. That's so key. So I love that you pick up on that when people respond that way.
Well, what are some of still, like, what you get? I'm curious, like some of maybe, just a few of the quote top questions, if you will, that still kind of come up that, you get to just kind of explain to people and kind of give them information on.
Yeah, I think there's still the single nutrients, because we're so obsessed with single nutrients. I really want to encourage people to just think about the way we eat holistically, rather than just obsessing over these single nutrients. That the reason we obsess over them is because we've been conditioned to, because of the marketing of the meat, dairy, and egg industries. They want us to obsess over protein. They want us to obsess over calcium, because they say that their products are the only ways to consume, to take in those single nutrients. And of course, that's not true. So of course, we still get those questions. And even when I get those questions, I still encourage people to answer the question themselves, because a lot of times when people even say, well, where do you get their protein? Where do you get your protein? To me, who's vegan, they know the answer. If I say, where do you think I get my protein? They go, yeah, well, it's really in beans, and it's in nuts, and it's in a lot of plant foods, isn't it? Yes, it is. Great. Good answer, right? Because they know. And sometimes I do think that people ask questions that even they may know the answers to, sometimes because they don't know what else to say. And just, we're social creatures. We don't like feeling left out of a conversation. We don't like feeling like we don't know something. So I think sometimes people are just really finding a way to bridge a conversation with you. But when it comes to the single nutrients, I do, I've heard that a million times, and we can have an easy conversation about that. When it comes to the food part, I think that is an aspect where, again, it's really a matter of changing people's, just the direction in which they're looking. I don't even have to change anybody's minds. All I have to do is change the direction that they're looking in. So when they say things like, well, what do you eat? I say, well, what do you eat? And they might say, well, I really enjoy pasta with a marinara sauce, or I love sandwiches, whatever. Okay. So that's great. So we're eating the same kinds of things. Here's the way to just shift it so that you're just replacing the animal products with the plant-based foods. So the food is still something that people ask questions about, but again, with a little bit of just shifting the way they think about it, they come around. The area that I do think is a little more complicated in terms of really empowering people, because it really is a shift in the way people think and behave, is the social aspects. So honestly, that is where I see people really struggle. Some of it is because they haven't given themselves permission to reflect their values in their behavior. They think somehow that is an affront to those family members and friends who have not made the change. And that's mostly because that's what they've been told. That's mostly because they're being told by other people, well, you're preachy, you shouldn't be, I'm not going to change. And all you've said is, I'm vegan. Like, all you have to do is say, I'm vegan. And a non-vegan might say, well, that's a little preachy. Hi, I just said I'm vegan. Like I didn't say, and you should be, or you're wrong for not being. But there's a lot of defensiveness that happens because of that. So it's that part that I really see people struggle with, because they have to own their own values and give themselves permission to reflect those values. And really, it's a matter of helping them find their voice as well. And that's tricky. Than just, hey, there's a vegan sausage you can buy at the store. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yep. No, I agree, because, I think a lot of times too, people, they get in their habits in life, and people know that would mean, dare we say the word effort sometimes, because it changes. And that's why people think if they can just put up, a little bit of a resistance, I find sometimes. But then that's why I just love putting information out there. I tell people, you know what? It is up to you. I just want your decisions to be informed decisions. I'd rather, if maybe you don't want to go, quote, all in right now, and you want to go steps at a time, that's great. Do that. It's a step in the positive right direction, and do it for, again, or if you want to slow it, do it for reasons where, hey, maybe it's just personal. You know what? I'm going to take my time, whatever, but not because, quote, I can't get protein, or not because, quote, I won't get enough iron. That is where, I just say, look, let's at least have a conversation about that. So when you make your decision, it's just an intelligent, educated one.
Exactly. I mean, one of the things I really encourage people to do is be really honest with yourselves. I mean, we make excuses all the time that become the convenient blocks for us to not do anything. And so I really just encourage people, just be honest with yourself, because we're the ones who sabotage ourselves more than anybody else. We can say, well, our family members, well, the media, well, the government, well, the marketing, well, all these things are just contributing to me doing these things. And this is just, the past, right? Well, that's what we've always done. History, our ancestors. Well, that's how my ancestors ate. Like, we can blame all those things, and we do. But in the end, what it comes down to is you making the decision, and you making the decision to make the changes, because that I think is where it starts as well. You deciding that you're going to at least do something to start making the change, open your eyes, see what you're contributing to, and see how you can start making those changes. But we're the ones who sabotage ourselves when we say things like, even down to, well, I tried being vegetarian, but I was hungry all the time. Well, why didn't you eat if you were hungry? Like, that's not a good enough reason. Like, that has nothing to do with being vegetarian. Well, I would be vegetarian, but it takes too long to chop vegetables. Are you not chopping any vegetables at all, not being vegetarian? That is not a good reason. And we do have time to chop vegetables. It's one of the greatest excuses people make. And the bottom line is, we have the time to do whatever we want. We just choose to spend our time in different ways. So these are the kinds of ways that we sabotage ourselves. And what becomes so wonderful and liberating when you decide to make a change is that you're just so much more empowered, because you realize that your fate is in your own hands. And it's just so much more enjoyable than living in this world of desire, but never actually doing anything to manifest that desire. And it's a much more pleasant way to live, actually living the way you say you want to live and experiencing those benefits, than making all the excuses to not do anything at all.
Yep. It's so liberating. It's so liberating for people to do that. And I remind people, and I know different people, just have different, opinions or ways, but like me, I try to remind people, look, you can go a little at a time. So don't make it harder, on yourself. You don't, because I think sometimes I get people thinking, well, does that mean literally, I got to do a 180 overnight? And because to me, I think most people, it's hard for them to be wired that way.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, so one of the things, so of course, my work is all about, I don't care what you want to do, why you want to do it, what the reason is. I want to just guide you through it. And I'm going to give you the information and the resources and the tools you need to do that. I have the 30-day vegan challenge, which does say, look, one of the ways to change your habits is to replace the old habits with the new habits. And there is a lot of evidence in terms of behavior modification experts talking about the fact that when you get rid of something completely is really the best way to be able to create a new foundation. So that's why the 30-day vegan challenge is the program that I created, because it also acknowledges the fact that it takes in this case, 4 weeks to change a habit. It takes 3 weeks to change a habit. 30-day vegan challenge is to say, just do it for 30 days. Because in that 30 days, what you're going to do is those reflexive kind of reactions we have to something like, oh, I'm hungry, I'm going to go get a burger. Oh, wait a second, I'm doing this 30-day vegan challenge. What are my options over here that if you didn't make the decision to do something like the 30-day vegan challenge, you wouldn't look over in that other direction? So it gives people the opportunity to just start picking things that they wouldn't normally pick, new things, understanding it differently. But it also gives you the time to experience the benefits, because the truth is, you can see changes physiologically, physically, biologically, of course, spiritually, you feel different. You see those changes pretty quickly. I mean, our blood changes depending on what meal we eat. You could take your cholesterol level when after you've fasted, sleeping, for instance, that morning, and your cholesterol level will be very different after eating a burger, a turkey sandwich, French fries, whatever you would normally eat for lunch, or bacon and eggs for breakfast. You can take your cholesterol right after that and you can see the difference. Imagine 2 days, 4 days, a week, 3 weeks, 30 days. So you see and feel and you can measure the difference. And that's what I love about the 30-day vegan challenge as well, is that it gives people the opportunity to actually measure the changes so they can see them. And I encourage people to actually get their blood work done before they start something like that. Having said that, so what happens at the end of the 30 days is you see the changes, you're empowered, you've made some changes, you've learned some new habits, you've learned some new products, you've found out some new restaurants, et cetera, that you wouldn't have otherwise. And from there, at least you have a foundation from which to build. But absolutely, whatever you want to do, wherever you're at and however you think you want to go about the changes, everything you do has an impact. Every change you make will have an impact and will make a difference. One of the biggest lies we tell ourselves as human beings is that, well, you shouldn't do, I can't do everything, so I'm not going to do anything at all. I mean, that's what people do. They say, well, I couldn't go vegan. Okay, then can you go vegetarian? Well, yeah. Well, okay, go vegetarian. So then do what you can do. People say, well, I could never give up meat, but I could give up cheese. And I say, well, what are you eating now? Well, cheese and everything. Well, then if you say you can't give up meat, but you could give up cheese, then give up cheese. Start somewhere. Don't do nothing because you can't do everything. Do something, everything. And that's the perfect example of self-sabotage that I was talking about before, is people think if they can't do it all, that they're just going to not do anything at all. And that is self-defeatist and makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. So don't do nothing because you can't do everything. Do something. Anything at all will make a difference.
I love it. I love that. You're right, because it just keep taking steps forward. Just, do your part. Well, let me ask you, so do you mind going a little bit more? Because I know you have, like you said, the whole 30-day vegan challenge. And I saw that on your website. And so I'm going to, of course, put that in the show notes for everybody. Do you mind telling a little bit about, I know the book is incorporated in that, and kind of maybe a little bit more, maybe the support and kind of what goes on with that?
Sure. So there's the book, The 30-Day Vegan Challenge, and there's the online program. You can join one or the other or both. Obviously, they complement one another. And the entire idea is to say, try this for 30 days. And during that time, I'm going to answer your questions. I'm going to help you with the challenges you say you have. I'm going to debunk the myths. I'm going to hold your hand the entire way, because support is such a huge aspect of making a change like this, because living, we're social creatures. Mm-hmm. So the 30-Day Vegan Challenge says, look, do this for 30 days. I do encourage people to get their blood work done So they can see the difference in their blood pressure and their blood sugar levels and their cholesterol, their weight, et cetera, all these measurables. And I even in the beginning of the book give you the optimal numbers in terms of what we want to shoot for in terms of, what the, American Dietetic Association or Diabetes Association talks about in terms of where we're at risk for diabetes. Okay, so this is where you want your blood sugar to be so that you're not at risk for diabetes. What does the American Heart Association say? Or actually, what do other experts say as well? Because the American Heart Association's numbers for the total cholesterol, they're still pretty high because we see that people aren't at risk for heart attack with a total cholesterol of 150 or lower. And the American Heart Association recommends 200. And that's because most people's cholesterol levels are about 240. So they think they're doing Americans, in this case, a favor when really they're not, because you're still at risk of a heart attack with a cholesterol level of 200. So I give you the numbers so that you can look at your own blood work panel and say, wow, okay, if this is where I want to be and this is where I'm at, what do I need to do? You take the 30-day vegan challenge, you get the support. There's a chapter on protein, there's a chapter on iron, there's a chapter on calcium, there's a chapter on B12. It talks all about the single nutrients, multivitamins, etc. It also covers all of the food. There's a chapter on breakfast. There's a chapter on packing lunches. There's a chapter on, obviously on meals and dinners and holidays. And then there are also all the social aspects I mentioned. So what does it mean? What about talking to coworkers? What about living in a mixed household? How do I cook and how do I deal with it if I'm making this change, but other people in my household are not? It talks about cooking for kids. So it covers all aspects of making the change of going through this transition. And by the end, there's recipes as well. So by the end, the idea is that you have what you need to stand firmly on a foundation. And it really becomes the launching pad for so many people. I don't tell them what to do once they're done, but I can tell you that a lot of really amazing changes are made once people feel confident with the support they've been given throughout that 30-day period.
I love that. That's what I love about what you do in that is, like you said, that keyword, holistic. Because it is an all-around, all-over change, positive change that you're doing through this process. Because so many, and again, it's like you and I said, hey, everything that's a step in the right direction, I love it, and please bring it. However, there's so many other, programs that I'll see that their idea to change someone is just giving recipes. And again, it's better, like you said, that's better than nothing. However, I love that yours, like you said, is basically, look, when you get up in the morning, here we go. And I'm gonna hold your hand through the day. I'm gonna tell you what to say to people, what to eat, how to eat, and just, like you said, blood work, everything. I love that. I love that you've thought that much ahead as to what, like walking in their shoes, what somebody totally fresh, if you will be going through.
That's right. And that, I think, is the difference between me and a lot of other programs. I have never forgotten what it was like to go through the transition myself. And of course, because I hear from so many people too, I'm paying attention to these things. So I don't put my own agenda on this program and my own idea of what I think you need. I know what you need because I've been through it. I've never forgotten that. And I also come at this from a compassionate place. This is also about creating relationships and not ruining the relationships we have. So I'm very sensitive to the fact that making a change like this affects the rest of the people in your life, because that's how relationships work. That's what they're like dances. If we're doing the foxtrot and all of a sudden, so that analogy being we're all eating the same way, and I switch to a waltz, i.e. I become vegan, you're forced to waltz with me or just leave the dance. And so that's why it upsets people when we become vegan, because you've just upset everything that was familiar, everything that was predictable. And now you're doing this thing like, I don't know how to waltz. I don't know what to do. And I'm afraid you're just going to either step on my toes. I love this dancing analogy. It's the first time I've used this dancing analogy. I like it. Or you're going to pull me in a direction that I don't want to go in yet. And so all this stuff happens around just us making a change, and that I'm very sensitive to. So that's why I cover so much of this. I've never forgotten what it's like, and I'm very aware of what the transition is like for people. But also, what I think makes my work unique is I don't have one way of saying you should eat, and I don't have one way of saying, my approach is, however you want to eat on the spectrum, because people will be, there are people who do programs for becoming raw. There's people who do programs for becoming gluten-free. There's people who do programs for people who don't want to eat fat or oil. My approach is, look, this is about getting meat, dairy, and eggs out of your diet. The spectrum of how to eat, once you do that, is vast. If you don't want to eat blue foods, don't eat blue foods. If you don't want to eat oil, don't eat oil. The point is, once you make the change of getting meat, dairy, and eggs out of your diet, then we have all these options in terms of how we want to just kind of, customize our own way of eating. And that always happens, because once you get those things out of your diet, and once you get the fat and the salt that's been coating your palate out of your diet, you start craving different things. You start desiring things that are whole, that you never did before. So I think that's what also makes my approach unique, is that it's not a diet. It's not about eat this way, this is how you have to eat, don't eat this, this is a bad thing, that's a bad food, that's evil, blah, blah, blah. It's just, here's what you need to make this change, to do it confidently, to do it joyfully, to do it deliciously. And then you have this foundation on which to build, to customize it any way you like.
I love it. I love the analogy too. You have everybody dancing in the plant-based vegan streets. I love that. But, you are right when you just put that out there for people. I mean, it's just, I tell people, look, people that listen to this for me know I'm a meathead wrestler growing up. I mean, I'm the last one that a lot of people thought would be like this. And that's actually was a key moment for me, because I wear that as a badge of honor, because I want people to know, you know what, there is not one set thing, one set type person, or whatever. This is for everyone. Everyone can do this. And so, love telling people that. And kind of what you said, I'll tell you what, like you talking about palate, you're right. My taste buds went to another dimension when I did. Naturally, nothing was forced. I mean, I now love eating, Brussels sprouts and broccoli and stuff. You would have had to beat me when I was growing up to try and get me to take that stuff. No way. Now I love it.
For sure. It is really so wonderful. That's what happened. You don't get it until you do it. I could tell you, you're going to love Brussels sprouts. When we were growing up, most of us weren't raised on kale and Brussels sprouts, or, not at least in a good way, be covered with cheese sauces and fat and cream and all of the animal fats. So we didn't even get a chance to taste the vegetables on their own. The vegetables is where the flavor is. And when our palate is so coated with fat and salt from meat, dairy, and eggs, it's not sensitive to the subtleties of the flavors of plant foods. When you get that stuff out of your diet, you start to really appreciate the flavors that are in the plant foods themselves. And it changes everything. And again, you don't know that until you experience it yourself, which is why I encourage people to do something like 30-day vegan challenge, because it's only then that you go, oh, I wouldn't have tried this otherwise. I wouldn't have ever tried, this restaurant or this food or this dish had I not been challenging myself to do something different. So that's the stuff that I love, is that the changes that people experience and the benefits they experience, that's what empowers them to keep going, because it's firsthand subjective experience. It's not just me telling you, no, it's great, you got to try it.
Yep. I love it. It's so true. Well, all right. So let me ask something. Again, with you doing this, and we always fall back to also in life, busy. Like you said earlier, you stay busy. I stay busy. I tell people, look, I'm a single dad to 2 teenage boys. And so I'm always running. Every day changes, hour to hour with them. So what are maybe some good go-to maybe meals or, snacks that are just kind of, you think are like, hey, these are the easy ones, almost grab and go, anything that kind of is a staple for you, if you will?
Well, again, everyone eats different, especially on the spectrum. The things that I eat today are probably different than someone who's making this transition initially. But I would say start with things that are easy switcheroos. Mm-hmm. So get the plant milks into your refrigerator and get the animal milks out. And if you have to switch little by little because you're used to the flavor of cow's milk, for instance, then start doing it half and half, but start getting that out. You won't know the difference when you're putting, when you're eating cereal. So keep eating the cereal you like. That's fine. But start using some plant milks instead of the animal-based milk. Look at the things that you're already eating now that are already plant-based. You're eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, or again, pasta with marinara sauce, or pizza where you can just have the cheese removed. Things that are going to be familiar, because this is about keeping it familiar so you don't feel like your entire world is upside down. Start incorporating some of the plant-based meats. Those are wonderful ways to get the texture, the flavor, the familiarity, the mouthfeel, all of those things that we associate with the animal products, that we can make a tofurkey sandwich with the tofurkey slices that are fantastic rather than using the turkey slices. But look at what you already have, what you're already making now, so that it's already familiar. And what was I going to say? Besides the meats, the milks, and the butter. So earth balance, So you switch out something like earth, but you're never going to know the difference, and neither would anybody else in your household. So I do like things fast. I like making soups and stews. I do believe that we should decide what to have for dinner time the night before. I do not think we make the best decisions when we decide what to have for dinner at dinner time. We're already hungry. We're going to just reach in the refrigerator or the freezer for something quick, for something frozen, for something highly processed. So I really recommend that people think. This doesn't even take time. Everyone's complaining about being so busy. This takes brain power. This doesn't take time to think, what do I have in the refrigerator that I can start preparing now so that at dinner time, I've already got something made. So if it means, taking 10 minutes to chop up some onions and some carrots and some potatoes, and then maybe you've got some lentils that you can throw in a slow cooker, or just at least have chopped up so that when you are ready to prepare your dinner, it's easy to do. People complain about chopping vegetables. I recommend that you chop vegetables in advance. When you're making a recipe and it calls for an onion, chop 2 onions, put 1 in your recipe and put 1 in the refrigerator. You've already got the cutting board out. You've already got the knife out. So always think ahead so that you're always planning ahead. If you want to spend more money rather than spending time, then buy the vegetables that are already chopped up. Supermarkets have figured out that people don't want to chop vegetables, so they're chopping them for you. So, we're always deciding if we want to spend more time or more money. So you're going to pay a little bit more because someone chopped them for you. But if that's worth it to you, let's say you have a really busy week, then do that at least. But always think ahead so that you're always planning ahead and never caught at this point of, I'm already starving, I'm already hungry, and I'm just going to make whatever decisions right in front of me. We do not make the best decisions when we do that. So that's the stuff that I think really makes the difference in the long term, is just thinking ahead, keeping it familiar. And then the bottom line, I would say too, is when we're talking about the foods that we're familiar with, Mike, people will say, well, I tried being vegetarian, but I was really craving meat. We are not obligate carnivores. We do not crave the flesh of other animals. This is physiologically 100% a fact. We are not obligate carnivores. We do not see squirrels running past us, or deer, or cattle grazing on the side of the road and jump on them to start thinking about lunch. Like, that's not what we do, because we're not obligate carnivores. We don't crave the flesh of other animals, but what we do crave, and I mean that in the loosest sense possible, but what is most familiar to us is that familiarity, texture, fat, salt, flavor, comfort. So if you think about that, when you think about making these changes, you go, well, I really am craving a hamburger. You're probably craving fat. You're probably craving salt, and you're probably craving just this familiar thing of this patty between 2 pieces of bread or in a bun. And so if that's what you acknowledge, then you go, okay, so then if it's the familiar part, let me go grab a veggie burger. There's so many now to try. There's so many to make, but there's so many to try out there that are already on the market. Okay, let me use the veggie burger, put some avocado on there, put the ketchup, put the onions, put the lettuce. Now what you've got is the fat, is the salt, is the familiarity. And that's the kind of stuff I talk about. If you think it's fat you're craving, make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, have an avocado on your sandwich, make guacamole guacamole and have some chips. It's not the animal products you're craving. It's the fat, it's the salt, it's the flavor. So the texture. So those are the things that I think really help people kind of get past what they think it is they want.
That's cool. I love that. I've never really had it explained like that. Thank you. I like that.
Welcome.
It's always one of those, where we learn what makes us tick.
That's right. It's underneath. We have to go underneath it. We have to understand what it is, exactly like you said, what makes us tick. And when we do, then we're reaching for the thing that actually does satisfy our cravings. And we get what we want. Then we get everything we want. We get the health we want. We get the fact that we're not contributing to violence against animals. We get the flavor. We get the food. We get the satisfaction. That's the bottom line. If we feel sustained and we feel full and we feel satisfied after eating, that's what it's going to come down to for people. But we have to understand what it is we get out of the foods we're currently eating and how to still get what we want out of food, but not in a way that's harming ourselves, that's harming animals, that's harming the environment. So we can get all of it without causing any harm.
Isn't it so cool that one change, we just make one change and it affects, like you were just saying, all those things. I mean, people can do it for different reasons. However, that cool one change, hey, I mean, me, it started out like for, preventative health. And so that was a lot of behind me. And I love animals and it transitioned to that. But I'll just being honest, my first, if you will, out of the gate was preventative health reasons. But once I made that change, now I'm helping animals. I'm helping the compassion in the world. I'm helping the environment. And so all these things, so that's what I love, is because we're so used to so many things in life are like a 1-to-1 ratio. And this is a 1 to multiple. And it's awesome.
I love that 1 to multiple. It's true. There's so many byproducts of the changes we make, and you can care about all these things at the same time. And what happens when you do start making these changes, what I see happen is that, those going back to those letters you mentioned, I hear from so many people who either came to it through health, but then their hearts were open to looking at what happens to the animals because they're not participating in the thing that hurts them anymore. So you stop eating animals for health reasons. You're now just a little more open and willing to look at what meat production contributes in terms of violence and suffering, against animals. And then your heart expands and your compassion deepens, and you then care about things you never cared about before or as deeply. Same thing with coming at it from an ethical perspective. You stop eating animals because you don't want to contribute to violence against them. And then you realize, wow, I feel better. I want to eat more nutrient dense foods. I'm starting to run. So you you experience the byproducts that you can't possibly bank on when you make this change. That's what's so beautiful about it. And everything we do has an impact. A lot of people say to me, well, do you really think it's possible? Do you really think people can make a difference? And honestly, my answer is no. I don't believe that people can make a difference. I know that people do make a difference. Everything we do, everything we eat, everything we buy has an impact on someone or something else. We don't get to decide whether we can make a difference or not. We get to decide only if the difference we inevitably make is negative or positive. That's it. Those are our only two choices. So when you make a change like this, when you eat what you're eating, you're having an impact all the time. With consuming only plant foods, the impact you're having is only positive, or at least not negative. Of course, there are other things to consider in terms of growing methods. And of course, that's another conversation around supporting sustainable agriculture, et cetera, et cetera. But the point is in making this change and just eliminating meat, dairy, and eggs, the impacts you have are so much more positive than the negative impacts you have when you're consuming meat, dairy, and eggs. And I was there once too. I get it. But it is such a wonderful thing to wake up every morning knowing that I'm not contributing to suffering. That is liberating.
I love it. Your passion's jumping through the speakers. I love it. All right. So look, what's big for 2017? What have you got going on? Even events, maybe even where people could, see you and all. I know you've got a phenomenal trip coming up, I believe in October.
I do. Yeah. Yes. So we have been doing these vegan CPG trips. CPG, that's me, Colleen Patrick-Goudreau. And we've done them to Italy, and now we're doing one to Thailand. The next one will most likely be Vietnam, and we're looking also at in Japan and more in Italy. So the idea is to just travel. It's a group of 20 to travel with someone you trust, and of course we do things that, of course, all the food's vegan, obviously, but we also go to animal sanctuaries, and then I also have some more, just little workshop. Sounds more formal than it is, but just ways for people to engage with me directly. Mm-hmm. So that's coming up. So people can join my mailing list on my website. And of course there's 11 years worth of episodes of Food for Thought. Yep. But the thing I'm most focused on right now in 2017 is my spin-off podcast called Animalogy. And it's about all of the animal related words and expressions we use every day. And it's fascinating because most of us have no idea that words we say every single day have animals in their origin, which to me, it's such an important conversation to have, or to just highlight these for people, because it just demonstrates how connected we are with other animals. Our words, our expressions have animals in them going back hundreds and hundreds and sometimes thousands of years. And then I also talk about expressions that we use that are violent against animals. Kill two birds with one stone is more than one way to skin a cat. And just holding up a mirror and saying, does this really reflect the compassion I believe we do have for animals? And if it doesn't, then what does that mean? What does that mean in terms of how I speak and the words that I choose, et cetera? So it's so rich, this topic, and I'm so excited about it. So it's a large project. It's starting with the podcast. Of course, I also have plans for a book, and a lot of the talks I've been giving are really around that. So I do have some events coming up this year. People can always find them on the events page on my website.
For everybody listening, Animalogy is cool. I've been listening to that. It is very cool.
Thank you.
I love what you're bringing there. Plus, I know now I'm armed with stuff that I can just stump people in trivia.
That's true. That's true.
But it was just cool because I remember you even breaking down stuff like the hieroglyphics, like ox. I remember ox and how you were breaking that down in the hieroglyphic symbols, how it came to A and all like that. It was so cool.
Well, that's the thing that's amazing is it's so I won't get into it deeply. People can go listen to that episode, but it's not only animals that are in our words. Animals are actually in the letters of our alphabet. So if you look at so how our letters were formed, there's about 7 letters in our alphabet whose origins are from animals. And that sounds really weird and confusing if you don't understand how the alphabet was formed. So go listen to that episode called Animals in the Alphabet, because there's an ox in the letter A, because the Phoenician word was aleph, and that meant ox in Phoenician, and that's the letter A that the Greeks eventually took, and that's the letter A that we have. So it's fascinating stuff. Yeah,
it really is. All right, so where do you want to direct where can everybody find you? Where do we direct them?
So my website, just ColleenPatrick-Goudreau.com is the easiest, and they can find everything. It's also directs from joyfulvegan.com. If that's easier to remember, easier to spell than Goudreau. So joyfulvegan.com is also where people can find my work.
Well, I will put all that up in the show notes. And I tell you, I appreciate so much you coming on.
Thank you, Mike. I love your enthusiasm. Well, ditto, and thank you so much, and thanks for what you're doing, and I look forward to staying in touch over the years.
Yeah, well, thanks for what you're doing, and I'm gonna try not to butcher this. You said this earlier, and hope I got it right, because I want to remind everybody. I love what you said. Was it don't do nothing because you can't do everything, and then do something, anything.
That is perfect. That's exactly what it is. And butcher is in animalogy.
Oh, really? Ah. See?
Comes from the word that meant goat, because it originally meant goat killer.
Really?
Butcher comes from the Greek word for goat.
See, learning more and more. Well, listen, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Mike.
Colleen, thank you so much for coming on. It was awesome having you on with us. Your energy and your passion definitely is contagious. And I know all the listeners listening to this got a lot out of what you said. So again, I'm grateful for your time. And everybody, I want to advise you, go check out what she's got going on. I have everything in the show notes that you'll see. I mean, check out the 30-day vegan challenge. Maybe it's something that is for you, kind of like I said, maybe a reset, or maybe it's even something that you want to forward that on to, like a friend, family member, somebody like that is wanting to make changes, and they're just kind of wanting, a plan, if you will, a roadmap. This is the perfect thing for them. Put them, this link to them so they can see this, and that could be their roadmap for how they get started on this. I love what Colleen said about, she talks to people and someone may say, you know what, I can't be vegan because I like, meat. I could give up the cheese, but I like the meat. And she says, you know what, fine, give up the cheese. It is, don't think you got to change the world in one step. You don't have to do everything, immediately for some of us. Like she said, just, do these little things, and I love that. I love that approach. I love what she said. Don't do nothing because you can't do everything. Do something, anything. And that's what all of us should strive to do. Just doing our anything. Find our anything that we can do. And again, some of us are going to go take like the 30-day vegan challenge and transition over right in 30 days. That is awesome. All right. Some of us are going to come out of the gate slower, if you will. That's fine. Make these gradual steps forward. And just this way, you'll have the information, knowledge that you need. Colleen's got a ton of it there on our website. Again, I want to thank everybody for coming on. You learned a whole bunch of new things. Hey, like I said, Colleen's going to have all of us vegans dancing in the streets. I loved it. Love her energy. Everyone, forward this podcast on to others. It really is awesome. I've been getting a lot of great emails, great feedback, seeing the number of subscribers going up. And I know it's because of you, the listeners that listen to this and help spread the message onto others. As I've told you every single show, that is my goal here. I just want to spread the information, knowledge, take you on this journey, if you will, to hearing from other people, hearing from phenomenal people like Colleen that can give you a lot of information. Again, 11 years with her podcast. That is awesome that she's been sharing that much. So I want to share with you. Please share this with others. As you know, everything is Vegan Tour Guide, VeganTourGuide.com. That's where you'll find the podcast and everything. VeganTourGuide@gmail.com. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, everything is Vegan Tour Guide. Spread it on to others. Spread the knowledge. Spread the information. I hope you have a phenomenal day. As always, I want to say thanks to Pat Flynn for the information and inspiration on this podcast. I want to say thanks to bensound.com for the use of audio. And until next time, everybody, live Pure Vita.